All right, there we go. So tonight, Guts and Glory is what it's called. It's all about healing from the inside out. So your digestive system is really a tube with 3 solid organs. Those solid organs are your pancreas, your liver, and your gallbladder. And it's a tube that runs from your mouth to your esophagus, to your stomach, your small intestine, your large intestine, and then the anus, where everything comes out at the end. The 3 parts of our digestive tract, and we're going over the basics first, are really absorption, digestion first, which is the breakdown of your food molecules into different particles. Then you do absorption, which is where they get absorbed in, and then elimination, which is getting rid of the waste. Now, interesting fact, you might think absorption is a great way to go to test how well you're getting the nutrients into your body, but actually the elimination factor is one of the most important ways to tell if your gut is healthy or not. That is not something that we always think about. Now, our immune system, 70% of it, whoops, nutrients and function. I skipped it. I apologize. I skipped a fact here. So, our nutrients, to break it down. When we take foods into our mouth, we try to eat a balanced diet, right? We want fruits and vegetables, we want proteins, all of those different things. They all serve a different purpose. So when you're looking at your body, proteins are broken down into amino acids. At a cellular level, amino acids are the building blocks for everything. Then you have your fats, which are broken down into glycol and fatty acids. Now, my undergrad degree was microbiology, so I learned all about the cell and everything like that. So I get a little bit nerdy with it. Each individual cell in our body actually has a phospholipid compound in it, which basically means each cell is surrounded by fat, and that protects each cell so it can function properly and allow permeation through. So getting healthy fats into your body is actually really important. And the last one is your carbohydrates. Those are broken down into simple sugars. Why? Simple sugars are easily digested into the body and used, such as glucose, for example. Glucose is the most common one that we're familiar with, and that is used in cellular processes to produce energy for the body. It's used by the mitochondria, which produces ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, and that is used to power your cells. So that is why getting the right nutrients on a daily basis is super important for your cell. Not only will it allow you to have the energy you need, but it facilitates the healing necessary to your body. If you like to work out, when you lift weights, proper protein amounts will allow you to have amino acids to grow and re-strengthen your cells afterwards. Now, about 70% of your immune system lives in your gut. And this is one of my favorite terms in science. It's called your natural flora. So we know flora means plants, right? You know, flora, fauna. We all have a natural flora about ourselves, a natural healthy layer of bacteria that lives on our skin. We have a natural flora that lives in our gut. It is called your gut microbiota. And that actually responds to infection. It triggers the immune system to have responses. If you get food poisoning, it's going to be their first response. So 70% of that will live in our gut and communicate based on our cells and the food we take in, and then divest that out to the rest of the body through neurochemical transmitters. Why neurochemical transmitters? Because we have a gut-brain connection. That's actually really powerful. So 90% of our serotonin is actually produced in our gut. And serotonin is something that helps you feel good, helps you feel relaxed. But on the converse, when you're standing up in front of a bunch of people, oftentimes you end up with what we call butterflies in the stomach, right? I'm sure none of you have ever experienced that before. But believe it or not, GABA is a neurotransmitter that is produced that triggers fear, anxiousness, and it's predominantly produced in your gut. So if you think about it, if you're nervous about something, you get the all too familiar butterflies in the stomach. That is your gut producing in excess of the GABA neurotransmitter that's then going through your system, triggering that fight or flight response, and you feel that nervousness. And when it's done, your gut calms down, GABA isn't overproduced anymore, and you feel more calm. This is just the start of it. So I'm going to go to this next one. This is a great slide. I got to give Dr. Nicole credit. She designed this. It's powerful. So think of a pyramid. I am not a construction person. I admit this. I'm more of a cut once and then I have to recut several other times and then do things together and hope it fits. Not the most successful way to build something. When you build, you want to have that solid foundation. So I mentioned the gut-brain connection. Your vagus nerve is one of your 12 cranial nerves that you have. Those are nerves that specifically go back into your brain. Everything else runs out your spinal cord, out to the rest of your body. So that vagus nerve runs down the side of your neck, goes down, helps innervate your internal organs that are involved with digestion, and also helps with your diaphragm for breathing. So that vagus nerve has direct communication with your brain and with your gut. So if there is disruption with that vagus nerve function through subluxation or misalignment of that spine, that can disrupt your neurological communication top to bottom, if you will. So creating a situation where you have a solid neurological foundation through adjustments that set your nervous system and get it functioning at a higher level will allow everything else to function well. We treat a lot of kids who come in and they have neurological disorders, or they have autism. This is one of my best success stories. I have a 24-year-old autistic young man that I've been treating for 4.5, 5 years now. When I started to treat him, he was pooping once a month. That's a sign of concern, right? Not healthy. His body was stuck in fight or flight. With autism, there's obviously, I'm going to be blunt, there's some brain dysfunction going there. I don't know how else to word that charitably. And so he had that disruption between the brain and the gut and the neurology. So as we worked on him, he started going once every week. And then as we focused in at our office, learning the neurological and neurotonal specific adjustments, he now goes once a day. That's a huge difference. And his mom she didn't even think it was a big deal. She was just so happy. And when she finally told me, I'm like, that is fantastic. Because she was just so relieved not to have to clean up a giant mess otherwise. So it is powerful how your neurological system can impact your gut health and your gut function. So, things to watch for when we have neurological issues. What goes in must come out, right? I mentioned that before. I kind of shared my story. If you put food in, it has to come out. Now, if you're having, when we're looking, check your food, right? It's straightforward, but there's three things to look for. The frequency, I've kind of discussed that with that young gentleman. It should be once a day, at the minimum. Consistency and color. So, I'm not going to dwell on this picture too much. You can kind of all see it. There's different styles of poop out there. There's different forms, there's different shapes. We all know what diarrhea is like, I'm sure, and it's not pleasant. If you've had children, especially newborns, you know it's not going to be solid yet because it's all liquid that runs through. But all of these indicate different health status levels. Generally speaking, you want your poop to be more along the type 4. Smooth and sausage-like, where it just comes out easily without straining. I know, a little awkward to talk about, but we do need to talk about it. It is a natural, normal function, and the impact of it, of not being difficult or coming out wrong, has a huge warning sign and an impact. For my story, I have something called diverticulosis. So I don't know if all of you know that or not. Some of you do. Some of you I know have it. It is basically where you have in your large intestine, you have pouches that form, so then the stool kind of gets trapped, and it can be difficult from time to time to pass things through fully. So depending on my stress level, this varies on me, depending on my fiber intake, the nutrients that I'm taking, how much water I ingest. All that for me is really impacted by this type of thing. And honestly, I pay attention because it's a good sign for myself. Where am I at? What's going on? How am I being healthy or not? Personal story, I hope not too personal for you guys. Next is our color, right? So, when I was a kid, my dad became a camp director at an Easter Seal Society camp. And my parents were really good. I never got junk cereal until we went camping for like a week in the summertime. But when I stayed with my dad for a few weeks at this camp, I could have all the sugary cereals I want. So in particular, I ate a lot of Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops are green. So hey, when I passed a bowel movement that was a little bit too green, I was like, this isn't right. I wasn't familiar with it. And it turns out green food, if you have too much spinach, if you have too much food dyes of certain sorts, it'll color it green. However, green can also be the signs of bowel disorder or even food poisoning. It doesn't mean that if you now I know if I eat a lot of junky cereal or junky foods, that can happen. I'm not trying to be crass again, I'm just forthright. Brown is what your normal color should be. Yellow is can be a sign of infection, or if you eat too much yellow food. And I'm not sure how many yellow foods really exist, or if we're eating a lot of lemons, but that's a lot of acid if you are eating a lot of lemons. The three main ones that are really more, hey, keep an eye out, be concerned with. If it's black in color, yeah, it can be if you have activated charcoal or you take a lot of iron supplements, it can turn a little black. That's pretty normal. However, if you're not doing those things, that's an indication that you're bleeding in your upper GI. Basically, anything from the mouth to the esophagus, a little bit into the stomach, that blood then goes through the digestive system and turns it black. So that's one where you want to be checked out for. Is there a bigger issue at play? Red, again, that could be food dye. That could be if you eat a lot of beets. I know we don't have a lot of borscht in America, but some people like it. That can cause it red, but lower GI will have more of a red color if there's bleeding there because it's fresher. That blood and that iron in the blood isn't digested or absorbed. It's just mixed in with the stool, creating that discoloration. White would mean that you're having a lack of bile in your stool. And that bile is actually helpful in breaking down your fats into the fatty acid components, the glycerol, and so forth. So if you've got that, that's usually bigger issues like gallbladder, other things that could be at play in there as well.
What did we have when Robert was born?
Thankfully, I mentioned frequency. If we eat 3 meals a day, honestly, probably the expulsion should be more than once a day, but at least once a day. What goes in must come out. We're done with poop now. Does anybody have any questions? Which is pretty good, because there's like a 10-year-old boy sitting back there, and he doesn't have any questions. So that's a victory right there. All right, so other signs of gastrointestinal disorders, you'll have bloating, you'll have abdominal pain, signs of, and it's funny because you can have constipation or diarrhea. It's one or the other. Because the body's trying to get rid of the waste, and then it's inflamed, and so it can vacillate back and forth between the two as well. And nausea is one, because why? You've got all this garbage built up in there, and it's not going anywhere. So if you're building up garbage and toxins in your body, you're gonna feel nauseous, you're gonna feel sick, because it hasn't got a chance to be expelled. Now, I promise now we're done with poop stuff. But we are going to talk and go back a bit more into our gut health, our natural flora in our gut. So dysbiosis is when you have an imbalance occurring in your gut bacteria. So basically you have good bacteria in your gut and you have unhealthy. And if you get sick or you have stress, poor diet, or toxins like antibiotics, for example, yes, they're helpful in killing off bacteria in the body, but unfortunately they often kill off a lot of good bacteria. And that can cause dysbiosis, that imbalance between the good and the bad gut bacteria, creating, some abdominal distress, or not abdominal, but digestive order distress from time to time. Next, we're going to talk about SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So, I'm going to give a great analogy. Who's heard of Australia before? Nobody. Okay. So, Australia is a continent that has evolved over millennia by itself. It has its natural flora and its natural fauna, the natural animals that grew and adapted there. Now, what happened in Australia? Well, I would say around 200 years ago, the British were busy colonizing this country. No, the British aren't the bad people in this, but what they did like to do in England, they like to hunt rabbits. There are no indigenous rabbits to Australia. So what did they do? They imported some. However, the rabbits got out, and with no natural predators, they have run rampant throughout all of Australia, disrupting all the natural flora and fauna there because they're eating what they want and they're destroying the habitats and everything like that. That's essentially what SIBO is. You have a continent or a region in your body that has a natural flora and fauna. There's no animals living in there. If you do have animals in there, that is not healthy. All right? That's right, get rid of the parasites. And so when you have that, that is an imbalance. And then all the negative starts to overgrow and take over. And it will just, everything we went over with all the negatives, with your expulsion of fecal matter or poop, all the signs, you will start to experience that. Bloating, cramping, vacillating between constipation and diarrhea. That will all happen because you don't have balance. Balance is super important. If you don't have it, your body will tell you all about it. Other problems that do occur with SIBO, you could have, as it is up there, skin problems, digestive issues, bloating, I mentioned. Food sensitivities can occur. Why? Because you don't have the natural flora to take care of certain foods. Lactose intolerance is one that's often triggered a lot by SIBO. I'm not saying if you have lactose intolerance, you have SIBO. But when you have SIBO, it can trigger lactose intolerance. Because the lactase, which is an enzyme that's designed to specifically to break down the lactose, which is a sugar, anything ending in ose is always a sugar, to break down that lactose, isn't present anymore because the bacteria designed to produce it are overrun. So, that is what's, any questions about SIBO? It's easier to say SIBO than SIBO. Potentially. There are, well, we can get into lots of different concerns on that, but that would go under food sensitivity, right? Like wheat is a complex carbohydrate. When broken down, you want to have the right enzyme available for that. Now, I've also heard of Americans going, or people from North America going over to Europe and eating wheat and food over there and not having the same issues. So you can get into farm and things like that, and I don't want to, because I left my tinfoil on. I apologize. But if you're normally healthy and you don't have issues and SIBO were to occur, then I would say it's all possibility that could trigger a food sensitivity, like it says up there, where you're a little more sensitive to gluten or to wheat as a whole. Yeah, good question. Yes?
But how is it diagnosed? Because you could have some of these symptoms and it would be something else as well.
That's a great question. A lot of this diagnosis, as a chiropractor, I'm not equipped to diagnose this. Let's be honest.
I actually have it, just diagnosed with it, about a month ago. And you take a 3-hour breathing test at home, and then you send it into your gastroenterologist, and then they evaluate it, and they come up with this SIBO thing. And so I tested positive for SIBO, and all this stuff, including like chemo fog too, not chemo, sorry. But brain fog is part of this too.
Again, that goes back to that neurological base of gut, brain. If there's a disconnect, you're not having, not to be diminishing, Patricia, but it can affect cognitive abilities. So that's one where it's more gastroenterologist based. That's outside generally the scope of chiropractic. Yeah. Any other questions? Nope. Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Now, leaky gut. What is leaky gut? Well, before we get into leaky gut, I'm going to share something. Who likes corduroy pants? I do. Actually, I really like cords. I think they're fun. I like the little swish show. But anyway, if you know corduroys, right? They're all little ridges in a row. So I want you to think, how tall are you? No need to answer. Did you know that your intestines have over 4,000 square feet of absorptive space in them? That's a lot, and we're not that big. So think about that in size of your house, or wherever you reside. 4,000 square feet. That's a good amount, right? It's because our gut has little ridges like corduroy pants all the way through that. All that layering in there allows you, it's like corduroy upon corduroy, where it allows you to absorb all of that food, or to have that absorptive capacity. Now, leaky gut is basically poor absorption. You're not getting the right nutrients absorbed into your body. And that again has to go back to having the wrong amounts of the bad bacteria within your digestive system. So, what are some causes of leaky gut? I'm going to go over some, and I'm going to go over something else that hopefully most people here are familiar with. Diet, stress and lifestyle, medical conditions or medications, and environmental factors. Now, I want you to think about what are the 5 essentials. Think about this. They are nutrition, which is your diet. They are mindset, which is stress and lifestyle. They are oxygen and exercise, which kind of goes in with stress and lifestyle. And you have toxins, medications, environmental factors. And then there's chiropractic as the 5th essential. Chiropractic can help set you up to create that good neurological pathway, build that foundation of your pyramid, creating that good connection, right? I'm doing the pyramid here, if you can see, where it goes from your neurological base up to your brain and allowing your motor and your gut to all have good function. We have been talking about all of these for those of you that have been with Freedom Chiropractic for a long time. You're familiar with them. For those of you that are newer, you might not have heard as much about them. But they are powerful things, and they tie back in to some simple things that can make a huge difference in our health. So just think about that. Inflammation is something that we do want to address. Inflammation occurs in the gut. If you have a medical condition, for me, like I said, I have diverticulosis. I can't say it right. When it becomes active, it's diverticulitis. Why? Itis is always scientifically the sign of inflammation. When I have otis, it's calm, it's under control. Itis means it's a flare-up, and that is inflammation. Inflammation can be good. It is a response to a wound. allows it to heal, where it allows it to start getting rid of the nasty bacteria in a gut. But in the wrong spot, it can disrupt your body's absorption of food. It can disrupt the function and the normal motility within your gut system as well. So while inflammation can be good, inflammation can be bad at the same time. I don't always like to just point it as a villain, because I do know it has positive effects, but we just want to watch out for the negative ones when they do happen. Next, how to reset your gut. So, we're going to go over, I'm going to go over first 5 foods that are great for helping reset the gut and calm it down. So first, 5 gut healing foods, as I repeat myself. Healthy fats. I mentioned fats already, how they're important to just your cellular growth, but healthy fats, my handwriting really stinks, you have to give me a second. Dr. Jason will attest to this as well. So, healthy fats, in particular, it's your omega-3s. They help rebuild your lining, they help build the gut health. So what are some good sources of healthy omega-3 fats? Fatty fish, salmon, albacore tuna is actually one. Lake trout is a good source of fats. Those are just some of the fish ones. Next, nuts and seeds, in particular walnuts, are great at having lots of fats, lots of healthy omega-3s. And then obviously, avocados are on the side. They're a great source of fat. Have avocado toast in the morning if you like. I don't care much for avocado. But I also, look, I'm going to divulge something, please don't laugh at me. I grew up in a very English household in terms, my dad's from England, my mom's parents are from Scotland. So I didn't know what guacamole was until I got to college. So don't judge me, I grew up back east as well, all right? It wasn't a thing there. Probiotic rich foods. We talk about taking a probiotic or a prebiotic. Probiotic foods are really healthy. Some probiotic foods that you're probably familiar with. Kimchi, sauerkraut. Kefir is like a fermented yogurt drink that you can have. Some yogurts are actually good. You've got to make sure it says it has a live bacteria in there, and that's one for rebuilding your gut health. Actually, here's a fun fact. Some types of pickles are really good as a probiotic food, like dill pickles. They help with digestion and absorption. So when you eat a lot of meat, you want to break that down. So when you go to a deli, what do they give you with your sandwich? A dill pickle. It helps with the digestion. See, we've been doing some of this stuff, and we don't even realize the healthiness and the naturalness to it and how it can help us. Bone broth is another one. So with bone broth, we don't really make that anymore, right? Like a lot of times people will buy it, but it is caused by boiling and creating a stew for a long time for it. So I learned something the other day. A lot in medieval times, right? We think they didn't have a lot of foods, they didn't have a lot of healthy things, but a lot of taverns back then would keep boiling what's called a perpetual stew. Mm-hmm. And that was kept over 140 degrees, so it would inhibit and stop bacterial growth. But they would put meat and they would put bones in there to flavor it. They were essentially creating their own bone broth that they would eat daily. So we think of our ancestors not necessarily having all the same nutritional facts, but a lot of times they were naturally just incorporating this stuff on a daily basis without even realizing or having the knowledge of it. That's something to think about. The last one is antioxidant-rich foods. So blueberries, we think antioxidant-rich foods are a great one. Blueberries are one of the most, it's like a superfood basically. But fun fact, do you know raspberries are one of the most fiber-rich foods out there that you can eat? Yeah, that's a lot of foods. So raspberries, blueberries, all these fruits that we like, they're really good for us. There's a reason. So, have some berries. All right, so I am done. Oh wait, ginger. I love ginger. I forgot about this one. I thought I was all done. Sorry about that. She's all ready to go over there. Ginger, most people have probably heard about ginger. It's great for digestion. Resetting, if you're feeling nauseous or bloating. It really helps calm that down. However, we've already talked about how inflammation can occur in the gut if you've got dysfunction, right? Ginger is actually a very powerful natural anti-inflammatory. And we always think of it, it's great digestively, but maybe it's great digestively because it's removing inflammation from the system. So ginger is actually really powerful in lots of different ways. So, now I'm done. Hey, well, wait. Any questions about any of those foods? Judy?
What are your thoughts on kombucha?
Again, that's a fermented food. Well, it's more a fermented drink, but it's fermented. Fermented produces healthy bacteria, essentially.
And the numbers on it can vary depending on what kind of buy.
And that's like, I'm gonna go back with the yogurt on that. You have to make sure you're buying the right type of yogurt to get that live bacteria. So I think you need to be cognizant of what you're purchasing. Because, you know, I can go and buy kombucha from anywhere, but is it gonna give me the same value or nutritional value that I want? It is being
There's
conscious.
some are high in sugar.
Yeah. You've gotta be conscious on that and know what you're getting and where you're getting it from. Good question.
Just gotta say, if anybody needs kefir, Trader Joe's is, I'm sure it's live culture, I didn't look, but they've got probably the best price on kefir. Goat kefir, what they have goat milk and regular, so I use goat milk.
There you go. Go kefir.
So when you were talking earlier about, 70% of the immune system being kind of in the gut, when in chiropractic care, you're releasing often, right, your immune system responses. So
Yes.
where's the connection point between the chiropractic care and that gut with the immune system?
And nervous system.
It's the nervous system. So again, the vagus nerve is traveling down here. That's one area, right? Anytime you receive spine is a hose. This is an analogy I use a lot. The spine is a hose if you think about it. Your spinal cord runs through the spine. It is the water. You kink that hose, that is a subluxation. You remove that impairs that flow on that nervous system. So when you receive an adjustment, you're unkinking that hose. I've already spoken about my condition. I'm going to go back to that. One sign that I've got to be careful. Basically, if I'm getting backed up, I will experience a lot of low back pain and discomfort. An adjustment helps with that. It helps with relieving myself, to be blunt. It's a real connection for me. So I can speak to that. You wouldn't think of it, but I know neurologically it's triggering. And your low back in particular, it innervates your digestive system, or the intestines more in particular, allowing that motility of the gut to expel your food and so forth. So I mean, getting an adjustment down there can help stimulate that. And in my case, it does work. Like, I speak to it. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just fascinating the correlation between the adjustment itself in our gut and then the neurology that all connects it all. It's just so interesting.
Like we talk about, if we're talking about exploration, we know like what? We're surrounded by space, but we don't even know what lives in the deepest trenches of the ocean because we can't explore there. Our brain and how it functions, I mean, it's a little hard to test on living people and see what's going on. So it's hard to understand that connection sometimes. Some of it has to be anecdotal stories like my own. Some of it can be done through scientific research. But, we used to say, oh, that's an old wives' tale, but there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of connection there that we just have to look and really, oh, that makes sense. Sometimes, when in chiropractic school, when we were learning about certain things, they would say, when you hear hoof beats, think horses, not zebras. Because what are you most likely to see if you're in North America? A horse, right? If you think zebra, well, you're on the wrong continent and you're probably way off. So sometimes the simplest answer is really that simple connection. You just have to arrive there. No problem. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes. I'd like to think it would. I think on the toilet might not be the best position, because when you're sitting on the toilet, you're already in a position of strain. So I would either lie down and get a massage on your back that way. That way you're relaxing the musculature in that region. Or some people use like a hoop stool where they have something to elevate their feet, and that eases that strain on the low back and can help things pass easier as well. Questions? No? All right, Dr. Nicole.
Well, guess who has a lot of GABA in her system right now? But let's go with it. Dr. William was talking about a lot of information, giving a good foundation for some of the diseases, some of the concerns that we may have when we have any kind of digestive issues, and some of the food that we also recommend to have a good microbiota or microbiome in your system. Now, aside from eating those foods, some people need a little bit more of an effort or need to take action in a different way to start creating a really good environment for our gut. And I'm going to be talking about some of those actions that we can take for that. So we call it the 3 R's for gut healing. They're kind of like another or a few other R's implemented in there, but we have 3 main ones. We talk about remove. The first thing that we should do is try to avoid and remove those things that are causing any kind of inflammation within our gut. If you are aware that you're lactose intolerant, guess what you should not be doing? Drinking milk or any other thing related to it. We need to start avoiding some of those things. There's some people that they prefer to do a removal diet and go really basic at the beginning, and they start implementing things to figure it out what is causing any kind of inflammation or discomfort within their body. There are different kind of diets out there. For me to just give you a specific one will be a little bit difficult, because the microbiota that we have within ourselves, it's different. Like each and one of you have a different microbiota, because we do get that inherited from our parents in many, many generations, what they used to eat and what you are eating currently. And you're gonna create your little own environment. So removing some of those things that cause inflammation to then figure it out what is beneficial for you, what you can keep, what you should avoid, okay? We have gluten, for example, and there's many, many things to be mentioned, but we start by getting a clean slate, okay? The other thing that we do then is work on repairing that gut lining and that mucosal lining, okay? For this, when we have high levels of cortisol, is one example of something that can definitely affect that gut lining. So we want to be able to give a new and a clean slate in that matter. We have different kind of supplements in the office that help aid with all of this. And I'm gonna go over some of them in detail early on, but when we talk about the removal, this is when we talk about probably doing a cleanse, okay? Another supplement that we have that aids with that will be the oregano oil, because it helps a lot with diminished inflammation, as well as it helps with bowel movement as well, okay? Some of the other things, and when we got to repair and be able to repair the lining itself, that is when we can definitely work with things like Dr. William mentioned, as for the bone broth, because that has some kind of healing benefits that can help with that lining. We also can suggest in this case to do omegas, because omegas help a lot with inflammation, and it's all about creating that nice clean slate. The other thing that we do, aside from repair, we also want to restore the lining itself, okay? Because we want to have all of those 4,000 squares that Dr. William mentioned. We want that surface to actually be able to absorb all of those nutrients. But when we have a deficient lining, that absorption might not be taking place. The other thing is that digestive system to be able to break out a lot of the food that what we are intaking, which that breakout start whenever you're chewing and your saliva, and it keeps going and going and going in different levels of acidity within your system. But when we get to our stomach and when we get to small intestines, we need enzymes to be able to finish and keep breaking out those food for you to actually be able to absorb some of those nutrients. For people that have SIBO, a lot of them are not able to break out many of those foods because they're lacking those enzymes, and then you're not getting a lot of benefits from what you're eating. For that, we do have a supplement that help with those enzymes. It has both pancreatic enzymes and also have butane to be able to do that good building up, that restoring of the lining gum. Aside from removal and repairing, we also talk about re-inoculate. That is when we start talking about those probiotics. And it's really important to know that we want to center first with your food, because we don't want to just rely solely on a supplement, because then that means that the microbiota that you're gonna have is gonna be really narrow, and we want it to be expanded to what you're actually intaking. So Dr. William already mentioned a lot of good food, like the kefir, like the sauerkraut, like the Greek yogurt. We were mentioning that is really important with many of those, the Greek yogurt just as the kombucha, to be lower on the sugars, because then that's something that is going to be fighting against those good bacteria that we're meant to be having. Just like with the sauerkraut and anything that you can find actually in the can section rather than in the frozen area or in the fridge area, yes, it's sauerkraut, but it actually has missed and has lost all of those benefits when it goes through the canning process and the heating process to be able to store that. So in the fridge area, so you wanted something that is fresh rather than something that has been canned, because that canning process is gonna go through that increase of heat process, and then that is gonna kill all that good bacteria, and it's not actually gonna be active. So those are really important. Same as for yogurt, we recommend it to be plain Greek yogurt, and always checking that it has those active and live bacteria, because that's where you want to get the benefit out of it. Yes, the probiotics are really, like the supplement itself, it helps you to supplement what you're already supposed to be having with your nutrition. And the ones that we have in the office have a good variety of strains, because that's the other thing. We're gonna be lacking in different one of them based on our diet, and this is just gonna aid and supplement what you're already supposed to be having. Okay. Now, some of the other things, like I mentioned, some of the other things that help and aid with that. I'm missing this picture, the oregano oil, but that's definitely included in there. We have the mag citrate. This is more to help with the bowel movement itself. If we have people that are a little bit constipated or they don't have the proper frequency for that bowel movement, this is a supplement that is highly recommended. It is really good that it's on a powder version, because we have many patients that they are in a lot of different pills and a lot of different medications, and the last thing that they want to do is to add one to that group. So it just helps a lot on that. If I'm gonna go a little bit deeper on the detox as well, the one that we have is a whole month supplement of it. And it helps on the cell and on your cell level and in your whole level version. We have a lot of patients that they like to do this kind of detox twice a year, just to help balancing and giving you that nice clean slate. We also have the pooper for the kids. This is something that is gonna help lubricating and moisturizing the intestines to be able to help and aid with that bowel movement. I already mentioned the digestive enzymes. This is the one that helps with repairing that gut lining and giving you a good source of those enzymes to be able to restore and create good motion in there. As for the probiotics, as you guys can see, we do have that in both versions. chewable thing. So, and it doesn't have any sugar, so it's something a little bit more enticing for the kids to be able to create that good, a good environment and balance within their probiotics. We also talk about all their benefits aside from the supplements and things that we could be doing to help and aid with our gut health in general, and exercise is definitely one of those. Within exercise, it just promotes some mobility and some diversity as well within your gut microbiome. With the microbiome, by the way, we want it to be not just in a good quality, but we want it to be diverse, to be able to sustain and intake everything that our diverse diet as well. As for the microbiomes, we have about 6 pounds of them in our body, and when we want to be able to continuously be restoring that environment, because another interesting thing is that I know that Dr. William mentioned that we were not going to talk about poop anymore, but I do have a fun fact with that. When we go to the bathroom, about 60% of our poop is part of that microbiome. So that's why it's really important to be able to replenish it and as well as re-inoculate and restore it, because we're constantly losing part of it. Okay. But for exercise, like I was mentioning, we do have the benefit of creating that diversity and variety within that microbiome, as well as just promoting in general mobility, which is help them with that bowel movement frequency. It is highly suggested that we take about a 15 to 20-minute walk after every meal that we have to be able to promote some of that mobility within our system. The other thing that are highly related with that is the toxins. The reality is that when we do a high intensity workout, we most likely and hopefully are gonna sweat. And when the part of that sweating, we're gonna be releasing some of the toxins that we have in our body that might affect that microbiome and fight against the good bacteria that we're meant to be having. Within toxins, we need to take an examination about our surroundings. I know that when we leave our household, it's a little bit difficult to control what we're exposed to, but we have a lot of control and we can get empowered by taking a deeper look and checking some of the things that we use on a daily basis that can be affecting that microbiome. The thing is that we want to be able to address a lot of different things, because just like Dr. William mentioned, that our digestive system start in our mouth and finish in our anus. We have microbiome from the beginning all the way to the end. So we have some in our mouth, in our nose. We are in contact with it. Our system is going to be impacted by everything that is surrounding us. So some of the things that we get exposed and that can affect and diminish how that microbiome work and microbiota is things as our house cleaners, because they may have a lot of toxins in there. We also have the processed food, because then this is gonna help growing actually what we call the bad bacteria, and it's gonna start killing the good bacteria that we're supposed to be having within our system. The cosmetic for the ladies, and guys, I don't judge, but mainly the ladies, those can affect also, obviously, it's something that is in direct contact with our skin, and it's in direct contact for a long time throughout the day. So we want to be able and mindful of the products that we put in direct contact. The environment itself, like I said, I know that it's a little bit difficult to control what we're exposed to when we go outside. Just to be mindful about what you're surrounding. Awareness is the first step in many of these. And smoking, that counts for cigars, that counts for vaping, any toxins that you're literally inhaling is gonna affect the good amount of microbiome that we're supposed to have. Now, for us to know, okay, so I have a lot of cleaning products at home, I have a lot of cosmetic, if I don't wanna tell you what's on my fridge, if I open that, how we can know if it's good or it's bad. ewg.org, and that website is gonna have a list of, ewg.org. It's gonna have a lot of information about what will be certified that is something that is clean, and it actually has a scale from 1 to 10 of what they deem healthy. It's divided within food, it's divided within cleaners, cosmetics, like it has a lot of different tabs that you can clean. You can search by brand, and it's gonna let you know where that stand within that range, okay? And it's color-coded too. Red is bad, okay? But that is something, and that is a tool that you guys can definitely apply. I would say with this, just like with the diet, try to change everything all at once can be extremely overwhelming. So like I mentioned before, awareness is the first step. With many of these things, you can get on a mindset of like, okay, what's something that I can immediately change, and what's something that I can progressively do. It can be as simple as like, when this product is like over, then I'm gonna look for the best next option. And it does give you a good variety for any kind of products, because obviously there's also the financial portion involved. Sadly, the things that are clean, and it goes for products, it goes for food, are the most expensive, because apparently it's a really hard labor to take a lot of these chemicals out of them rather than just making it clean from the beginning. But you guys can have all of those options to then start assessing what can you change in your house, and how can you make your outside environment better to then start impact your inside environment.
Dr. Nicole?
Yeah.
Something that people don't think about is you really need to read the directions.
And how to use, yeah.
Things that people don't realize, like Lysol spray. You are supposed to wipe the counters and stuff after you use Lysol spray. You're supposed to wipe it with water before you put it in contact with other things. People don't really read. We just kind of all done it one way. If you don't read the directions and understand, like contact time for disinfecting things, and things that you are supposed to wipe with water after you've cleaned them with. It cleans great, but you need to wipe it with water before you put it in touch with
How
food
close, how
contact
far you
things.
should be from it, not making a nice clean cocktail and mixing the Fabuloso with the Clorox and the Lysol. We should try to avoid all of that, because then they're gonna like create this nice bum that is just gonna choke the air out of you. Sadly, been there, done that.
Or you could blow over to
Learned my lesson. But yes, so this is the toxin part of how our digestive systems can get impacted. Just like when we talk about things that can in general impact our nervous system, we talk about the toxins, but we also talk about the emotions as well. And that is something that can definitely have an impact on your health in general. Now, it's really important to reinforce that when we talk about our brain and our gut is called the second brain. Because when we are actually being developed in the womb, those are the two things that develop the first. And then we start separating, and neurons and cells from your brain stay within that digestive system. That is why they are connected in many ways. It is a closed circuit, because our digestive system is being impacted directly by the neurons that are attached from one to the other. The vagus nerve is one of those. That is one of our cranial nerve, and it has many stops along our system. Like it stops in our lungs, it stops in our stomach, it does stop in our spleen. So it's directly connected, that brain with the gut itself. It is also indirectly connected because the gut can start creating some chemical reactions that are gonna directly affect your brain, and they're gonna be sending information within each other continuously. So it is a closed circuit within those two. Okay, that is really important to know. The other thing that we want to make emphasis of it is that because of that, we want to create an overall good environment. Some things that can directly affect also, and we need to work on within that stress management, and how that can impact us, is because when we talk about cortisol, which I know that is most likely not a new word for you guys, it's a chemical and a hormone that is really high whenever we are in high situations of stress. That the cortisol can actually affect the gut lining within our system and start affecting the microbiomes as well within our lining. So it's something that we want to be really mindful and pay attention to it. There's a lot of techniques that we can do to start relaxing ourselves. Breathing techniques, for example, an adjustment is a great one that I recommend for everyone, obviously as a chiropractor, but we need to be proactive with managing our stress because it directly is going to impact our gut system as well. The other thing, we need to then start creating, like I said, a good environment within that. When we have a good balanced environment within our gut, the rest of our body is going to be happy. Our balance in the GABA is gonna keep us happy. The balance on the dopamine, which is another hormone that can be created within that microbiome, is gonna keep us motivated to do the things that we enjoy. And the serotonin, the one that 90% of it is actually being created within your gut, it's just gonna help promoting that good bowel movement, as well as keeping us happy. Okay, so just maintaining a good balanced stress responses is gonna directly aid with that. And I'm not saying that we cannot get stressed at all, because obviously that's daily life. It's just looking for the tools that are gonna help you manage that, to then help you manage your overall health. So as we know, the structure, it affects directly your function. And the thing with that is that the spine is the one that control all the functions within your system. That's why we obviously are gonna recommend chiropractic care for us, because that is gonna help creating that good environment within your nervous system itself, and then that is gonna send good signaling to your gut and your intestines, okay? The thing with that, like Dr. William was mentioning, how the two are related. Whenever we have a subluxation or a misalignment, that proper communication between your brain and the rest of your body is not gonna be there. Our brain is our main computer. That is your control center for every single thing that you do. Not some, every single thing that happens in your body is because the brain decided that that was gonna happen. The main highway of communication within that brain and the rest of your body is that spinal cord. And that is what our spine is protecting. Yes, as chiropractors, we work directly with the spine, but it's because of the intimate relationship that your spine has with the rest of your nervous system. We want those two, your body and your brain, to be in a continuous conversation rather than playing telephone. And whenever we have a misalignment, we're creating an obstruction within that communication. And it's gonna affect everything. So we want to be able to assess any kind of warning signs, any kind of feedback and information that your body is communicating with you. When we start having symptoms, headaches, when we start having constipation, any kind of screaming that your body is doing is because it's literally asking for help. And we don't want to ignore those warning signs, because if we let things be, they're not just gonna get better. It's something that is gonna continuously be building and building and building until one day your body's gonna say, that's it, I cannot. Like, you have to do something. We don't wanna wait for you guys to get to that point. We want to be able to avoid that, like, big fire alarm going off. We want to be able to act before that. I know that many of you, obviously, are taking care of your nervous system and of yourself, but on a day like this and an opportunity like that, we want to offer a benefit for your guests. And not just the guests that are here present, they do a little bit of a special opportunity, but we do want to be able for you to think about anyone at home, any friend, any neighbor that you know that might be experiencing any kind of issue. And it doesn't have to be something big, but we are supposed to be able to live in a regulated and in a state of being. So if there's someone that wants to take a further action, that they don't want to wait until that fire alarm start going off, we do have a special for you. We want you guys to be able to get addressed. We want you guys to be able to be aware what's happening within your body. As many of you know, when we are in our office, we don't like to guess with the health of our patients. We want to be as specific as possible. So when you get to experience a new patient experience in the office, we're gonna be thorough with our examinations. We're gonna do x-rays, we're gonna do inside scan, and we deem that necessary to have further information of how your body is doing, of what we can do to help create a better environment for you within your nervous system, and then for that to impact everything, especially that continuous communication with your gut, okay? Now, and we do that with all of you as well. As you know, we don't let a lot of time go by without doing a checkup, because we don't want to take for granted that you have already taken action. We want to be able to continuously be checking on you and see what we need to update to give you a better care and to serve you better. But if you are a person here in the office that is not currently an active patient, you guys can stop by the tables with Alicia and Bethany, and they're gonna help you take advantage of a great opportunity and a great discounted visit to be able to assess and check your system, okay? Any questions? Got a lot of questions for you, and not for me.
Well, what can I say?
What are you talking about? Some information that we do want to share with you guys is our next workshop. This is going to be a more intimate setting. It's actually going to be in the office, and it's going to have a cap of about 20 to 30 patients. We're still figuring out how we're going to accommodate a crowd there with all the chairs, but it's what we call a perfect storm. As you know, we're also continuously educating and improving ourselves with what we can do to offer you a better care. And identification through the pediatric experience is something that we have gone through to be able to better serve our community. This workshop is more inclined and more dedicated actually for children. As you know, we're a whole family office in Colorado Springs. And we want to be able to help patients that have any kind of anxiety, any kind of ADHD issues, if they have seizures, if they have many other complaints that might be affecting their life, any kind of neurological challenges. This is going to be the perfect opportunity for the parents to be able to be in a safe environment, share some of the things and some of the struggles that they are going through, and for us to be able to educate how we can start building a good foundation and create a good environment for the children's nervous system and help them be able to thrive in life, okay? So if you have someone in mind, any grandkids, any children, neighbors, again, you name it, this will be the great opportunity for them to go a little bit deeper, not just on the structural portion, but to have a thorough assessment within their nervous system to see how we can help them